to Annabel Goldie.
To ask the First Minister when he will next meet the Prime Minister.
First Minister.
No plans to meet the Prime Minister in the near future.
Annabel Goldie.
Presiding Officer, 250,000 people in Scotland are employed in the retail sector, and that's 1 in 9 of the Scottish workforce. Many of these shops are also vital outlets for Scottish food, and the First Minister knows this because when Sainsbury's announced 1,300 new jobs in Scotland, Alex Salmond described it, and I quote, without doctoring, a significant boost to the economy. But now, many shops, the length and breadth of Scotland, face the Salmond super tax threatening jobs and investment. So can the First Minister tell me how many jobs will be lost, and why is he giving out the message that in Scotland, if you grow your business, create more jobs and are a success, the SNP will punish you with a salmon super tax?
First Minister.
Can I say to Annabel Goldie, I think when we face difficult, tight economic conditions, when we face a £1,300 million cutback in our ability to spend, which has been introduced by her government at Westminster, then it's entirely reasonable to look for efficient ways to raise revenue so that we can protect public services. But not only protect public services, but also invest in things that we believe are vital for job creation. As Annabel Goldie knows, and we discussed as recently as last week, we put forward the small business bonus. That was opposed by the Liberal Democrats and by the Labour Party. But we managed to pass that small business bonus and have retained and expanded it through this Parliament. That small business bonus costs £140 million. It benefits 80,000 small businesses in Scotland who either pay no rates or heavily reduced business rates. It's a vital engine of job creation and growth. What I say to Annabel Goldie is that if we want to maintain the small business bonus, we want to protect public services, that it's entirely reasonable to ask those with the broadest shoulders to pay their fair share of the tax.
Annabel Goldie.
Presiding Officer, I want to help all businesses. That, of course, is why my party did make possible help for business rates bills for small businesses. And the £30 million which the First Minister says might be raised by his proposal could be found 4 times over by dealing with the high levels of absenteeism in the public sector. Now, when it comes to his super tax, the First Minister is sending out a message that it just doesn't pay to be a business success in Scotland. And whatever happened to the legendary SNP prawn cocktail offensive on business? Now the SNP is just being offensive to business. Never have so many prawns died in vain. If the First Minister really cares about Scottish business and Scottish jobs, if he really wants to secure the Scottish recovery, he should put the kibosh on his tax and jobs. So will he scrap his salmon super tax, and will he do that now?
First Minister.
Well, Annabel Goldie is quoting Michael Heseltine. Can I quote instead Colin Borland of the Federation of Small Business? Quote, "3/4 of our members feel it is time for the largest out-of-town supermarkets who benefit from free parking and other amenities our members don't enjoy to start paying their fair share." And let me also quote Stephen Boyd of the Scottish Trade Union Congress. Let's hope that Parliament will pass this measure and move to discussing those aspects of economic development that can make a difference to Scotland's workers. Or the Scottish Licensed Trade Association. The Scottish Government has identified a fair and reasonable way to raise money in these very difficult economic climate. Now, I don't claim that the Conservatives are inconsistent. The Conservatives on every possible occasion will back big business at every possible opportunity. But we are putting forward something we believe is fair. It's right for the economic times we're in, where we have to raise additional revenue. It helps to rebalance the burden on business between the high street and the out-of-town supermarkets. It's being paid by those, and incidentally, Annabel Goldie, if it wasn't going to raise £30 million, then presumably there wouldn't be the degree of opposition from the big retailers that we've seen. It's designed to raise money to protect public services, to finance the small business bonus, to help finance the freeze on the council tax. And if Annabel Goldie and the Conservative Party want to delete it, then they shall have to specify what issues that they are going to raise beyond vague commitments, and then tell us how they're going to raise the money, and tell the small businesses and tell the people of this country why they should have to pay instead of those with the broadest shoulders.
Question 3, Tavish Scott.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the First Minister when he will next meet the Secretary of State for Scotland.
First Minister.
No plans in the immediate future.
Tavish Scott.
Presiding Officer, next week Parliament debates the budget. I accept that choices have to be made to allow any new spending. A year ago I asked the First Minister about high pay in the public sector. Can he tell Parliament what progress his government has made since then?
First Minister.
Well, I think we've made substantial progress in two ways. We've announced proposals that will introduce severe wage restraint within the public sector, because we believe that is part of a contract of maintaining employment, but will protect those on the lowest incomes in the public sector. I think that is the right way to proceed, and that is part of the social contract that the government has, not with just our own employees and those of the National Health Service and other agencies, but with the people of Scotland as a whole.
Tavish Scott.
Presiding Officer, a year ago the First Minister told me that high pay was already dealt with. So we asked the same 160 public sector organisations how much they are spending paying staff over £100,000 a year. They told us that last year they were spending £281 million. This year they are spending £334 million. So spending on high pay has actually gone up by £53 million in 1 year. I'm puzzled because the SNP government pay policy promised punitive action on high pay, yet spending is rising and quickly. So does the First Minister still believe, as he's just said again, that those with the broadest shoulders should pay the biggest burden?
Yes, I do, which is why we are proposing the pay freeze for those over £21,000 a year in the public sector. The basis of the government's approach has been to substantially reduce administration expenditure in the public sector. He has seen the budget proposals which do that in a dramatic fashion. The basis of this government's approach has been to heavily restrict bonuses in the public sector, hence our arguments in terms of consultants in the health service, where we have led the field against an unwilling Westminster government and against extremely slow progress by the present Westminster government. Anybody reading the record of John Swinney as Finance Secretary can see that indeed he has put forward the proposal that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the largest burden. But he has done that with the intent also of protecting employment in the public sector. And it is our dearest wish that if we can get the flexibilities required, if we can get acceptance of the pay settlement, then we hope and believe that our no compulsory redundancy policy can be maintained, something of which this government is very proud indeed.
I will take a supplementary from Frank McAveety.
I welcome the comments on jobs and economic growth and fairness. Therefore, I want to ask the First Minister if he thinks it's right and fair to slash the budget of urban regeneration companies across Scotland. And will he ask his Enterprise Minister to intervene to present the 46% cut in the budget available to Clyde Gateway and East End of Glasgow, which will jeopardise the opportunities to bring jobs and industries to a number of vacant sites in one of our most economically disadvantaged communities? And can he tell me when the East End of Glasgow became the area with the broadest shoulders in Scotland?
First Minister.
Well, as Frank McAveety should well know, the budget priority to the Clyde Gateway, £18.1 million available in 2011-2012, is a substantial commitment which will allow the Clyde Gateway's ability to deliver the priority projects that it has established for 2011-2012. We are, as Frank McAveety knows and has been acknowledged recently in a general way, incredibly supportive behind the Commonwealth Games project. We think it's going to be a fantastic development for Glasgow, but also a fantastic adventure for Scotland as a whole. I do know and believe that the vast, overwhelming majority of the people of Glasgow appreciate that commitment from the people of Scotland and from the Scottish Government. And just occasionally, I'm sure that the same constituents would want their representatives to reflect that endorsement of this substantial investment of hundreds of millions of pounds in the city of Glasgow.